I had patients telling me, well, I don't feel well, even though my TSH is normal. And I studied this here. And they would like bring me a book on something you could do with T3, which is a type of thyroid hormone that could, help based on temperature. And then I would find the guy who wrote the book, and I heard he was going to be speaking. And then I went to him with a million questions, and he didn't have any answers either. So I just was like, I guess I'm going to learn this and teach everybody else because nobody seems to know.
I'm Rees. This is the Sophia Unfiltered podcast where we bring together thought leaders, wellness entrepreneurs, makers, and emerging health leaders. We're here to have raw, unfiltered conversations because sharing your stories has the power to change lives, help others heal, and transform the way we take care of ourselves. Here we go. Welcome back, everyone, to Sophia Unfiltered. I'm Rees, and today I'm excited to talk with Dr. Lisa Koche. She's Tony Robbins' lead physician. She's a triple board certified physician, functional medicine and longevity expert, and a quantum energy practitioner. We can't wait to hear her story and hear all of the things. And jumping into functional medicine, your personal story, Lisa, welcome to Sophia Unfiltered.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. Do you want to just share with our listeners a little bit about who you are and your background?
Absolutely. So I am functional medicine integrative practitioner in Tampa. I have a large brick and mortar clinic with 8,000 patients, multi-specialty, where we combine the best of sort of ancient medicine and modern medicine. And my story is what led me to this beautiful place that we are sitting at today. And the story has not always been so beautiful.
Yeah, and we just go back. We're jealous we're not in Florida with you, and we can't have access to your practice potentially. But yeah, share with us a little bit about how you got here, right? So, functional medicine practitioner, massive practice, and started with a childhood illness as well, and now you're able to help thousands of people. And you're working with Tony Robbins. So,
Yeah.
for our listeners who may be struggling with an illness, isn't it affects your mental health, your physical health to where you're at today. I mean, it just means you've overcome so many physical and mental health barriers.
Absolutely. So my story started at the age of 15 when I was diagnosed with childhood leukemia. So I went in for a camp physical, thought everything was great and exciting, and got a call back that they thought the labs were off and there was a lab error. So that led to 3 years all through high school with a big fat steroid face and a wig and pretty toxic chemotherapy. I was lucky enough not to be hospitalized at that time, responded really well to the chemo. So we went full traditional medicine. I had parents that didn't understand a lot of integrative things. There wasn't much around back then. And luckily, I had a leukemia or a cancer that was very responsive. It was known to be responsive. So we did that traditional route. There were times every 6 weeks I was getting a procedure, whether it was a bone marrow biopsy or chemo into my spine that was invasive. And I was wide awake, where now people are put to sleep. So it was a pretty grueling time. And somehow, and your listeners will love this, and many of the things I'm going to share, you don't have to be in Tampa. I love sharing my wisdom on Instagram. I'm writing my second book. I'm doing a lot of courses online now. I love speaking. So you can catch me lots of different ways. But this beautiful setup of what it was now, I can say was a gift. I had the ability to know at 15 that even then things were happening for a purpose. So went through all of that. Lovely, supportive, incredible parents and family. And, cancer has its toll that it takes on a family system. So I'm passionate about that too. My sisters, interestingly enough, are both psychologists. So when, your sister gets diagnosed and I was 15, they were 12 and 3, it was, emotional stress and fear all the time in the house, and they felt abandoned and things that you couldn't help with a sick kid. That my parents did their best. So it's interesting their path in life.
Right. Think about like the family dynamics that get affected, friends, like close friends, family, think about that. And not only that, but you're 15. I mean, going through so many transitions, in high school, when most people are trying to like drive a car or go to, who am I going to prom with? And you were dealing with life-threatening cancer. And did it force you to grow up? I mean, how are you dealing?
Here's what's so interesting. I was okay. Like, I still feel like I had a high school experience.
Wow.
I would actually go because I knew I was going to throw up. Back then, we didn't have drugs that prevented that. I'd go and pig out on like candy bars because I was like, well, it's just, the calories don't count. Like, I always had this great kind of let me make the best of it attitude that just came innately to me. It was
Wow.
also something I'm sure your listeners will understand, which was my best and my worst trait because I was so concerned with everybody around me, how their experience was, this hyper empathy that I was born with. That I think looking back, I probably didn't allow myself the time to really either grieve the high school I should have had and or feel the feelings even though they would have been accepted, I didn't do it, and that was just the beginning because I got through those 3 years, did great, went off to college, my hair was just starting to grow back, had a great experience for a couple of years at Emory University in Atlanta, loved it, and then I went for my first ever pap smear when I was about to enter my junior year of college, and the GYN who had delivered me, so he was my mom's GYN, but, he was amazing, and he stopped in the middle of the exam, so I knew that something was wrong. So we went in his office. He said, I feel something. I think it's a cyst, but we need to go in. So here I was a week before I was starting my junior year, about to go into an apartment in college. And I woke up in the recovery room and it was the leukemia cells had been hidden in my ovaries. It's super rare, called a sanctuary site. So I wasn't technically back into full fledged leukemia, but I had to go have chemo again, right when all of my hair was fully grown back and I was feeling really good. So my parents freaked out, understandably. We went up to Sloan Kettering in New York City. And there, after about the second round of chemo, I went into heart failure. That's been one of my big passions throughout my career because at that time, my uncle's podiatrist started sending me supplements. And I didn't know what they were, but they were CoQ10 and carnitine. If you know anything about the heart, those are like the two main still today that help cardiac function. So I started taking those. I started feeling better. But that has been something intermittently that has carried on through my adult life.
So was
So
this, I mean, so was this heart failure separate or was it because of the
with the
treatment?
chemo,
It
yeah.
was the chemo
Mhm.
causing issues with
Yeah,
the
it's a
heart.
pretty well-known side effect of one of the chemotherapy drugs, adriamycin, causes, chemo-induced heart failure, and they have certain levels that they are supposed to stay below, and they did stay below that level, but my heart went into the acute failure below levels below what they thought were toxic.
Wow.
So at that point, was super short of breath, got put on some meds, and my heart recovered within the year. So within the year, I was done with all the chemo. My body did well in regards to that. I was able to run a 15K, and I never. This is the craziest part. I still graduated on time from college. Just kind of wild in hindsight, because that one semester, all I did was physics at night. So I went to night school in New York City. I went to night school and got my one class going while I was going through all the chemo. So I went to med school because I wanted to figure out why I got sick. And one of my very first med school interviews, the guy said, "What do you want to do?" And I said, "Well, I want to be a pediatric oncologist." That was the only experience I had had, right? Was with these doctors that
Right.
had been amazing to me. And he looked at me and said, "No, you don't." And I'm so thankful to him. He's one of my many angels. But he just that one sentence, like, "Do you really want to take care of sick kids that are dying?" And then I was like, "No, I don't want anybody to have to do what I had to do. I am going to prevent this." So I did like a complete pivot, went off to med school and just started asking questions. So that was how that journey started. And what I found was in med school, which was supposed to give me all the answers, because I was also in a really good med school. So of course I would figure it out. I got the same thing, which was this is just how we do it over and over again.
Wow. And so from there,
So from
is it
there, I knew I needed to stay general because if I was going to figure out why people got sick, if I got super specialized, that was one of the problems I sort of saw in the medical system is everybody is just working on their organ,
right?
right? Like
Yeah, nobody puts it all together. Yeah.
nobody's putting it all together. And if I had to pick an organ, it was the heart because I had dealt with heart stuff. I found the heart fascinating. And I had this conversation the other day because I've come full circle. And we can share that in a minute. But everybody wanted me to be a cardiologist. And to me, watching people do all these procedures, whether it was because I'd had procedures done to me, I didn't want to hurt people, or because the truth of it was I didn't see it fixing the problem. I didn't see it understanding, like, okay, they're in there putting a stent in there, but why the heck is that plaque there? You know? why is the pacemaker going?
Root cause, root cause, root cause. It just
I drove them all crazy. They were just like, we don't know. So I had offers for double to triple the salary, but it would have been in a big box type of a practice. So I took a shot, and that the cardiology practitioners that trained me were leaving the university going into private practice. They brought me to start prevention of cardiovascular disease, and I took half the salary, like less than what a nurse made, basically, to make my own fellowship and join them. So I started studying obesity, what caused it, because that led to obviously heart disease. I was teaching myself nutrition. I followed a vascular surgeon to try to understand plaquing. And through that whole journey and working with gastric bypass patients, I saw their hormones getting messed up and like a lot of other things happening. And eventually I found functional medicine and a fellowship in that in about 2008, started studying that in depth and realized, I went there thinking, okay, I'm going to learn more about thyroid and the gut. And then they were teaching all this hormone stuff. And I was like, I'm not a GYN. I don't want to do that. And then I was like, well, crap, they're all connected. I guess I'm learning that too. And so that's what happened. So that kind of led one step to the other, learning through both my patients, learning on my own body, realizing it takes a village. So I brought in other practitioners as time went by as well to kind of help my own healing and those around me.
yeah, I mean, in 2008 was I don't think functional medicine was as much of a buzzword. The integrative functional medicine, that
I
was
don't know.
way before this ever came to be what it is today.
Absolutely. And actually, back then, what happened is I started dabbling, and patients actually led me to this. I had patients telling me, well, I don't feel well, even though my TSH is normal. And I studied this here. And they would like bring me a book on something you could do with T3, which is a type of thyroid hormone that could, help based on temperature. And then I would find the guy who wrote the book, and I heard he was going to be speaking. And then I went to him with a million questions, and he didn't have any answers either. So I just was like, I guess I'm going to learn this and teach everybody else because nobody seems to know. So I have brought in a bunch of different healers, and right after I had my daughter, so nobody knew if I could get pregnant. I had one ovary because they'd had to take it out back when I was 20.
Right.
It had 5 years of chemo. I got pregnant first try with my daughter. I did well till the end. At the end, my heart started pooping out a little bit. They were worried about my heart. And then after I had her, I crashed within a few months. I got severe Hashimoto's. I got psoriasis. I couldn't open my eyes. I was told I needed eye surgery. It was thyroid eye related problems, sinus surgery. And I got exposed to something called muscle testing or kinesiology through a friend of mine. And that was where the game, another huge pivot point for me, where a naturopath who had done muscle testing for 40 years was about 30 minutes from me. I started seeing him. At first, I was like, you got to be kidding me. You're pulling on my arm, and like, this can't be real. And then I went through anger and being pissed because I was like, if this is this easy, like, what are we doing? This is answering a lot of questions that I asked all the way through med school and residency and my career. So he started, long story short on him, he started coming to my practice a day a week. And to this day, he's literally in the room next door. He and I have been side by side for 14 years, treating patients. And a lot of times I wouldn't tell him, I do testing, whether it was, gut microbiome testing or other types of lab testing. And I wouldn't show it to him. He would do his evaluation, and then we'd compare. And it was pretty miraculously close, like astoundingly close what he would find. So over the years, I do a little bit of the muscle testing with every patient now, and then I more complex, deeper dive into the muscle testing. He takes over, and then we also brought in a specific type of chiropractic, which is called the Atlas orthogonal or upper cervical. That is a safe way to get C1 in alignment. That was another huge game changer. So our team kind of consists of practitioners in all those fields.
Okay, so there's just a few amazing things here, but I want to circle back, right? So they said you also had Hashimoto. So I don't think that's very understood today, according to my girlfriend who may have experienced this. I mean, that's taken years to find out, tons of testing. So did you know straight away? I mean, did this take a lot of testing? Were you able to kind of bypass because you're.
Yeah, I would say you're right, and it's sad that it's still not understood as well as it should be. I didn't have a lot of misdiagnosis. Mine was I knew enough at that point, just enough to be dangerous but the endocrinologist, let me get something straight. I went to, at that time, before I saw the naturopath, I was back to doing all the traditional because I've never been somebody who agrees with all or none. I don't agree with that. So when you see these naturopaths and people today, like literally saying that all doctors and all
No,
medicine
no,
is
there's
wrong,
no agreed. We
that
agree. Yeah.
that just absolutely drives me crazy because nothing is black and white. So for me, at that point, I had chemo saved my life when I was 15. So like I'm not against drugs. It's just trying to do that dance. And that's what I'm so passionate about. It's helping to lead patients to when is a little bit of drug right and when is, the natural stuff an answer. So that journey helped me figure it out because I went to the endocrinologist and I went to even a thyroid eye specialist, and this is worth sharing, this one crazy thing that happened to me. So I go to the endocrinologist. He does all the testing, tells me, yes, you have Hashimoto's, but then he says, we don't test these levels again. And I knew that wasn't true. He said, they don't come down. Well, mine were over 2,000. They're now 60. Okay. And he put me on Synthroid and said, you can test your TSH in 6 weeks with my nurse practitioner. Okay. Well, I walked out of there saying many curse words in my car because I could draw my own TSH and he was not helpful. But I did that just because. Then I went to the eye specialist because that was an actual critical problem. I was having trouble opening my eyes. They were very painful. And this is a guy that only does thyroid eye. So I had all kinds of really exciting questions for him. I was actually super excited to go in there. I heard great things about him. And he's a surgeon who did not want to answer a single question I had. And so he just kept saying, you need surgery. And when I left, I walked out and I didn't schedule the surgery because it didn't make sense to me. And my eyes are perfect today and I never had surgery. And I walked out and I was saying goodbye to his staff and there must have been a button under the desk because he came running out of the back and said, why are you not, what's the problem? So I told him that and I went to my car and I was just appalled because I was mostly, again, I have this hyper empathy that I've always been gifted and cursed with. And I just got so mad for all the humans that were in his office that didn't understand because they're all getting surgery, right? So I went away and that's when I found my naturopath and went on my journey. But about 2 months later, I got a letter in the mail, certified letter actually, and it said I was fired from his practice.
What?
And if you can believe it, to this day, there's still patients that are having surgery because, of that. So the short answer to your question is yes, it is still not very well understood. The long answer is all of these nuances, but the fact that there's so many things we can do. The reason why people don't understand it is because it's not a primary thyroid problem. So they're seeking out thyroid specialists, the broader problem. And that's why people hit walls when they go for help.
I mean, when you're having any kind of symptoms or issues and you go for help and you just get a solution, it's just frustrating. And then you don't know where to go. I mean, and you don't know about all of these naturopaths and all of these different specialties that you're even alluding to and bringing in. Like, you just don't know they exist. Hey, that's why Sophia Health exists to help bridge that gap. But you just don't know how to Google an answer to a problem that you can't pinpoint. And that's why we exist, right? Fundamentally, because thank goodness for you and your practice putting these different amazing people in a brick and mortar facility because most people only have access to that big box store, aka a hospital, right?
Yes, but I will say for those of you that are listening that that's all you have access to is that through platforms like this, but also now
Right?
there's self-testing that you can do.
Yes, it's
Um,
incredible.
Many of us are reaching out on broader platforms to work with patients, whether it's in group settings or, or through courses that you can self-pace and do on your own. It's very empowering and it's more that dance and that's why I talk about sovereignty on your journey because every human has a different set of issues, obviously. So we're all such unique humans. But B, you may be somebody who has to go much slower on your journey. You may be overwhelmed more easily. You may only tolerate one or two supplements when some of these natural people are giving you 20 at a time. That knowing yourself is most of the journey is really understanding that you have to be your own advocate, drive the bus, find the right humans to lead you, find the right community, which is another thing I'm super passionate about as well.
Yeah. So now tell us, so in your functional medicine practice, you talk about how it connects to longevity. Can you just elaborate on that a little bit more? Because everybody
Yeah.
wants the key to longevity, right? What's the
Yeah, and
secret?
I love it. I mean, longevity really starts in the mitochondria. So I think if you look at longevity in general, you want to always consider lifespan versus health span. So it's always worth mentioning that, even if people have heard that before. There's a lifespan, but you don't want to die at 100, but been in a nursing home for
Right.
15
Right.
years. We want to be 100 on a motorcycle and get hit by a car, right? And like
Exactly.
that's health
Exactly.
span. So how do we extend health span? And this is a point I love making, which is so many people are comfortable talking about how messed up the system is today. And yes, it is, but it's also one of the most exciting times to be alive and in medicine because we are getting more testing, we're getting more hacks and therapeutic options, we're getting more things we can do at home, all of which, especially by using a technique called hormesis, which is stressing the mitochondria in very small ways. It's almost like working out at the gym. There are ways to train those energy producing parts of our cells to make them work better and to make more of them, which can then lead to a longer health span.
Oh, that's incredible. And is this on your website? How do we get
Yeah.
more information on this specific test? Like how do we get this?
On my link tree on Instagram and on social, there's a free Becoming a Biohacker book. I've got some free resources. There's information on the true age testing, which is one other exciting thing in regards to longevity. Have you heard about that yet?
Yes.
Okay. So yeah, so that test is a really interesting one. Although again, you can go many ways with it. So a lot of your listeners are self-motivated, I'm sure, and they're excited and they're on their game. What happens, another thing I'm very, very passionate about, like I just said, everybody's at a different pace. A lot of the people giving advice right now that are the biohacking longevity gurus, okay? They are, I don't want to say bros, but a lot of times it is more men, just that's the way it's historically been. And a lot of the advice that's coming down even from women as well, it's very overwhelming for the average human, and it makes you feel like you're not enough.
So yeah, so there are a bunch of bros. A lot of information coming down is making you feel not good enough.
That's the feedback that I've gotten from some of my patients, and even honestly, when I listen, there's an undertone, like, if you don't jump on this right now and change everything tomorrow, and like, you've got to be out of your mind if you don't do this right. And a lot of times it's very complicated advice. It's a lot of super expensive supplements.
I was about to say
Yeah.
it's expensive and it's everything and it's all over social media and it's take this. You're in so many vitamins you can't even powders like you don't even know what's
So
good
many
anymore.
vitamins, so many powders. You don't know what's working. And then you throw in the hacks, right? So doing the red light, doing the cold therapy, fasting, trying Tesla coils. There are a million different things that are out there. So as exciting as it is, helping coach people through what could be right for you with these set of symptoms, or with what could be right for you when you're ready to do this. Like, you're ready right now, let's start here. So that's what I love doing, is that's where I view sovereignty, is like knowing your body and your journey enough to be able to say, okay, this podcast now is stressing me out, right? It's too much.
Yeah.
Let me go and find something that maybe is a little bit like, dial it back where we're just getting started. Or,
Right.
I just am going to take gluten out of my diet. That's it for right now.
Right.
And that's
Right.
great.
Right. Right, exactly. And now, as far as testing goes, though, I totally agree that patients are more clients, customers, like humans are more in control of their health, and you can get all these amazing test kits. I think they're great. But the new test, the body scanner, what do you feel about that one? Because I mean, you even hear people and on social media, they're flying to Turkey to get these tests done. Is that a thing? Like, should we all be out taking the test?
So I think because of my journey, I think I'm a very important person to ask this question to, because I know what it's like to be freaked out about your health. Okay, so we just start with that. So historically, I would not do screening tests. And this applies even to some of the genetic testing that's out there too, because there were too many false positives or there were too many answers where there wasn't anything you could do about it. Okay. That would be for me, that was a clean just no. Now, more recently, the tech has gotten better with less risk of doing it and less false positives. That if you are able to handle a screening test, that's an if. There are some people that it's not worth it. The workup, the stress, if anything is off, if that's who you are listening to this, I'd rather you work on some of your fear based patterning, balancing your somatic nervous system, like cleaning up your gut, taking gluten out. Like, don't go jump into every scan there is because most of the time they may find a little something. There's a cyst or there's a this or there's a that. What we're doing right now is working with a company called Prenuvo. Prenuvo is spreading around the country and it's a full body MRI. Why I like them is because there's with MRI, really no radiation and they don't inject the gadolinium. So the problem with scanners a lot of times is the contrast. So this is nice because there's no contrast, there's minimal radiation. It is still pretty expensive. So it's going to be a cost thing. It's under 2,000, but it's not cheap. They recommend doing it maybe every couple of years. And I can tell you I've had good experience with it.
That's great.
Out of the several patients we've done so far, it's not even in my city yet. So the patients are driving about 3 hours. But out of the patients I've done so far, we've already caught 2 prostate cancers. And the urologist was able to just go in, grab it, and move out. So, that's exciting.
That is exciting. I mean, that is the beauty of this. And I understand it can overwhelm, like she mentioned, if that's you, definitely don't do it. But there are these cases where you're testing early and finding out and getting it under control.
Yeah. And if you want the real jaw dropper, is something I just studied up on last week, is a new cardiac screen. This is the full circle I was talking about. So when I made that decision, I don't want to go into cardiology because I want to be doing all these procedures, right? So I've been working on preventing people from getting cardiac disease. Well, the scanner, there's been calcium scores testing that has been out for a while now, maybe 10 years, but I'm not totally sure on that length of time. It feels
Sure.
about right. And you can get that involves radiation and contrast and having to take a beta blocker to slow the heart rate down and take the pictures. But it was exciting when it came out because it could give us a step above stress testing. Stress testing, I think most of us know somebody who went in for a stress test, it was normal, and then ended up with a heart attack. Like the stress testing is really not ideal. It's picking up when there's plaque that's occlusive, but a lot of times those patients don't end up with they're not the sudden death people. So we knew there's something missing in the screening realm. So then these calcium scores came out, which was exciting. But now the scanner has gotten way better. So it's gone from like a 68 slice to like a 680 slice. And what does that mean? It means with less radiation, yes, you have a little contrast, but it's very minimal radiation. The pictures are coming out, and in many ways, they're actually better than being in the cath lab. So not just better than a stress test. So this cardiologist I met with last week, he showed me side by side pictures of a patient who went to the cath lab, was told that their coronaries were clean, and then the CCTA it's called, and there was plaque, and it was a lot of it.
Wow.
Now, you get a step further, this particular practitioner also believes stents are not the answer, which is exciting,
Wow. Wow.
and is treating patients medically. So this is a medical treatment, but the drugs are very high dose things we don't want necessarily, right? Like massive doses of statins and other medicines that we know are not good in those doses for us. So he's seeing with his regimen, even though it's massive drugs, he's seeing like literal regression in plaque. So he had a patient he showed me with 75% LAD, one of the main vessels in the heart, after a year down to 48%. So this is like game changing. And my role and what I'm going to be doing on working with him is to come up with the less toxic, more natural protocols and then track people. I won't have data for a while because we have to wait a year.
Yeah, and you just started
From
last
this.
week. Yeah, but it's all exciting, right? To be able to test, to get the access to the test, to find out where you're at in your health journey. And one more quick question. Well, I actually have two. One, you talk about heart coherence while we're on the heart. What is heart coherence and why is that key to taking control of our health?
So our heart can beat when we hear a lot about heart rate variability and how a higher number and more the more flexible the heart is in terms of that beat to beat variation, the healthier it is. Well, it turns out too that our heart has a nervous system, which is actually like 40,000 neurons, something crazy like that. So that when we walk into a room, literally our heart is sensing the room and then giving that message to the brain and not the other way around. So I think just envisioning that for most people, we are trapped in a brain centric society where it's, looping thoughts, consumerism, patriarchy, all the different things that go on, plus just like the mental self judgment. And even like I was saying, like you're not doing enough. You got to clean up everything right now. Whereas we're ignoring the power of when we're more heart centered, and that's a certain state that the heart gets into where the beats are more stable. There's a flow state, we call it, where the neurons are firing at their highest capacity. And it can be measured when you sink into that spot where everything is balanced. And if they actually have studies that when you're in that state of heart coherence, which heart math, if listeners want to get more detail, heartmath.org is a company that's been around a very
Yes.
long time. And they have biofeedback devices that using breath and presence and meditative um, coaching can show you how to get into this state of coherence where the heart is beating in a synchronistic way. And there are studies showing the funniest one is if you get into coherence before going gambling, which I am not recommending anyone gamble. That's my disclaimer. But that people, their intuition is heightened to a state that they were able to show they were having bigger wins.
Wow.
But that was wild. Yeah. So practicing and my personal experience on heart coherence is we all know those times where we're really just feeling it. We're connected. We're present in our bodies. We're connecting to the human like you and I are right now. Um, it's almost like everything around sort of goes away and we can feel the intuition. We can feel a higher knowing. That's a way to know. It's kind of a cheating way to know that you're in more likely to be in coherence or in a flow state. And that's where we can have better conversations with our family, with our kids, with our partner, have better productivity at work if we can get ourselves centered there, because that's what I believe to be one of the true edges in terms of biohacking for longevity is that we don't understand in our culture yet what we're missing by not leading from our heart.
And I think what's interesting about that is where we're at now with social media and our phones at our hands. I think that's probably, you tell me, but isn't it kind of blocking the ability to innately be able to listen to yourself and connect with another human if you're busy on your phone?
Well, in many ways, not just the distraction, right, of that, but there's also the EMF. So there's actually an electronic block because the heart is all electricity. So
Right?
you're absolutely right. And when my daughter asked me to buy her the Apple Watch when it first came out. So how long have those things been out now? What, 10 years easy?
Sure. Sure.
Something like that.
We'll call it 10.
We walked into the Apple store and I didn't know what she was talking about. We walked up to the thing, the counter, and I saw what it was. And I literally like repulsed backwards and said, "You will never wear that. No, I'm not buying you that." And so to this day, luckily, she's very evolved in this area because I wouldn't force her now. I mean, she's 21 and yeah. But I don't wear them. I tell my patients to take them off because even though they have some great ability to measure things, the combination of the constant distraction and the EMF, and then maybe whatever monitoring is happening too as an underlying side
Right.
note,
Right.
is just not worth it. So I agree. I
Yeah. I
agree.
don't even like to have my phone on my body. A lot of people put it, except I don't even want to put it next to me. I mean, I know that sounds silly, but I've never
No,
wanted
it
to do,
doesn't. And
do that.
there are now a lot of, things you can use. Like this is a new technology that has some science behind it to block the EMFs. Um,
Oh, okay. I'll have to
yeah.
check that
So
out.
On my website, drlisacoach.com, there's a favorites tab and there's some EMF blocking, and that's on there.
Oh, wow. That's
At
great.
that. Yeah, and you can put that if patients just won't let go of their watch or, on your computer, it's got some science behind it that it can help block the effect.
No, that's amazing. And my last question. So we MD to quantum energy practitioner, right? So a lot of people, right? We're in California, so we know we believe all this, the acupunctures, the energy, the chi in your body, but a lot of primary MDs, I'm sure, do not get into the energy of the body, any of this. So what brought this
Yeah.
about?
Thank you for asking that. So everything that I've stepped into along my 20 years in practice has been led primarily by my own body, but also by my patients. So what I was finding is there's always more. And this is the beauty. Like we talked about some of the things that I live by. Like I don't stop learning. And I knew there was more because I was watching the muscle testing. And at the same time, which is working in the energy field, at the same time, two other things happened. One is the university here called me and said, there's this guy that called us with this bed and it's supposed to clear energy fields and it's curing diabetes and we think it's interesting, but it's too weird for us. So we told him to call you. so so that was about 10 years ago. And I've had a bed in the clinic that balances parasympathetic, sympathetic, and it's light and energy. So I knew, even though I didn't understand the how, I knew that I was watching patients change in front of me.
And this was a
Um,
bed? What was this?
it's a bed. It's a bed. It's called it, the FDA went after the bed. So it is now closed and that company is closed, but there are many that have come out since. We have one today called the Vibe bed that's got like homeopathic sound and vibration and it's clearing people's energy field. And you can watch a patient. We can measure some parameters before, put them on a 20-minute treatment, get them off, and they're better. So I always knew there was something. And then I ended up also meeting a hands-on Jinshin practitioner. So that's acupuncture without the needles, who is blind. And she is now one of my best friends. And I could feel what was happening on my body. So it would be that combination of like this intellectual questioning and knowing that something medically and physically was happening, along with my own intuitive knowing that's always kind of led me the right path. So I ended up studying for 2 years it's an intuitive healing school to work on those skills for myself, where I can tap in a little bit more to the patient and feel energetically what's going on. But we all have these gifts, so this is not something just for doctors. We're all
No,
here.
absolutely. The fact that you're bringing this to the forefront, I just feel like gives it a little bit more credibility and being able to take in this realm that most MDs are, it's too out there, right? Like the university called you, this is weird. You come, you do
It's
it.
way too weird. Well, they're not. In fairness to them too, because I do often feel called to support my colleagues, right? They're in the conglomerate. They didn't have the guts to say no to that, or they didn't have they're in a subspecialty, right? So for them to go and take time and have some freedom to explore, they just don't.
And I also
So
feel, and you can tell me if this is wrong, but they're in an acute healthcare system and we're talking about how to live better and live healthier and
yeah,
longer. And that is a different kind of way to take care of yourself and your whole body versus going in and saying, I have a broken arm. Can you fix this? Right.
you're absolutely correct. And we need both because I mean,
We absolutely need both.
look, people have cellulitis and they need an antibiotic. And
Or
thank
you have
God we
cancer.
have, yeah, and thank
Yeah.
God we have those drugs, right?
Yeah, exactly. Cancer, we have drugs, heart failure, we need treatment, like all of that. It totally exists. But, then you have this beautiful blend of how do we blend this together to live longer, healthier lives. And I think that's where functional medicine, the integral, all the buzzwords come in. But I think you've just blended it in such an amazing, you've taken your journey and now you're helping thousands. And I think it's beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you. I love it. I love it because patients are more ready than ever. And I think
They
that was
are.
it was a gift of COVID. So I think that, the journey people have been on over the past 3 years and the sort of mistrust that has occurred, overall has helped the awakening of humanity for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah, I agree. I mean, COVID was a terrible situation, but I think it's really just given tailwinds to people being ready to, take control of their own health and reach out and find some answers. But thank you for being here and sharing your journey and all of the amazing good stuff that we can now find on testing. I think it's incredible. But there's a question that we ask all the guests on the show. If you could share 3 fundamental pillars that contribute to your well-being.
Absolutely. So the first one we already touched on, which is learning. I never think that I know it all. I am very open. I'm an avid student. So I always have 3 books going at once, or I'm talking to people. I think everybody has something to share and to learn from.
Or you're tracking down those authors who wrote the book.
I am. I have been known to do that. And then I become friends with them.
Yeah.
But like, Legally Blonde, that movie where she becomes best friends with the doorman and the nail lady, like everyday humans I'm passionate about learning from them. So learning and always. And then the next one would be the understanding that there's a spiritual component to every health both issue and beautiful longevity, right? Like journey that we have to work through those. And I am not scared of being in the arena. So that's that quote, right? Like, I don't want to hear from you unless you've been in the arena. Well, I've been punching in the arena for
Been in
most
the
of my
arena.
life. Yeah. So I've been in the arena. And then I would say the last one is just living what I preach, combining healthy eating and movement and being around animals that I love and trying to work on my relationships, and just using the tools. Like there are a lot of biohacking and great tools that are not expensive that people can use today.
Well, thank you. We appreciate that. And I know we also have a discount to some of your programs online, but if you want to tell our listeners where they can connect with you and how they can get more information on your programs for those who are
Yeah.
virtual, maybe not in your city, that'd be great.
Yes, no, absolutely. So drlisacoach.com is my main website, and there's lots of everything from my favorite tech and down to all the courses that we have. And I'm also Dr. Lisa Coach on social media platforms as well. And excitingly, I did just recently sign a book deal. So I will have a book coming out, and it's going to be a bit. It's going to be the beginning of 2026, but it is entitled Sovereign Medicine.
Oh, that's incredible. That's great. And if you go to her website, and we'll link it in the show notes, you can also use our discount code Sophia Health 25, take 25% off any of her online courses on her website. But Dr. Lisa, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks so much for listening. This has been Sophia Unfiltered, a podcast by Sophia Health, the #1 marketplace for health and wellness. Find services, classes, and products from the top health and wellness providers. Book an appointment or join live classes now. I'm your host, Rees. If this episode resonated with you, we'd love to hear about it in the comments section of your favorite podcast provider or with a 5-star rating. Let us know what your biggest takeaway from this episode was, or share it with someone you hope to inspire. Join us again next time for more real conversations, stories, and insights that help empower you with the knowledge and inspiration needed to transform how we care for ourselves.